I lost my pictures. Okay.
That's really
Who? I have no idea.
It's literally just the 4 pictures we took, and then I get to send it off, and that's it.
Well, you'll have them right now.
Everyone's tired of freezing.
I was like, what the bro? I'm so upset about that.
We have 20 days, I think.
Yeah. 20 days. Not enough. Do you have a backdrop for your table?
I am
One overboard.
little overboard. I'm sewing a banner with my logo on it, and then I have Gothic inspired burnout windows that go on a black or charcoal black background.
You said you have one more meeting after this?
Me?
Gosh.
We have one more speaker event.
Who is it? Demo. That's the demo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, want me to get started?
Sure.
I'm gonna start recording. Nathan, do you want me to spotlight you recording, or does that really matter?
I don't think it matters. Okay, so most of you I know, or have for a very long time. Nice to see those of you who I don't know yet. My name is Lauren Kelly. I'm tenure faculty here. Are you? Because there's only 2 of you. I don't know. Are you in the?
Yeah, my junior right now.
Okay, great. How about you? What's that? Does he know shapes?
He does probably know what.
Does.
Yeah, express interest.
You are? Okay, nice. Well, good. Well, I will, so I teach the UI and UX classes here. My background is I'm a full stack web developer. I've been, coding since I think I was 11. And I work on like apps, things like that. As I mentioned, I also teach. Some of my research interests, and this was, I got my bachelor's and my MFA both at Davis, related in design. So some of my research interests are about sensors and interaction-based, non-screen-based interaction. So if you might recognize this, one of the older power pads back in the 80s and 90s, most of the interactions were really, really interesting. You're starting from these like huge kind of larger pieces to all the way down to wearables. So one of the things that I encourage students to do is to figure out sort of their trio of interests. So mine is web design, signage and wayfinding, and then kind of interaction and gamification. So with this, one of the, just realizing I'm not sure if my, go back to that. I'm not sure if my speaker is on. There we go. Okay. So one of the things that I know, as for you, those of you who are seniors, most of you are probably slightly worried a little bit about AI design. If you haven't seen Terminator, and I know the audience might be edging out of laughing at this reference, but I still really enjoyed it. This idea that AI is really going to start coming for a lot of different industries and a lot of different jobs. And one of the ones that it is really going, really starting to affect is design, interior. Before this, though, to give a little bit of a background, just related to sort of the development of AI and development of this technology. So starting, of course, with the Industrial Revolution, where we're starting to have more mechanical engineer or mechanical machinery that are helping take over jobs, helping humans not have to do everything by hand. Going into electricity when we started the second industrial revolution, and then all the way to electronics, which we sort of have started to see develop even more since the late 80s and 90s, and going into the internet. They call that sort of the industry 3.0, and then of course going into artificial intelligence. So the idea of this is that everything in those first three phases, everything was really human-based. So everything that came out of these machines, we planned for them, we programmed these machines to do what we wanted them to do. What has been different about artificial intelligence is that in theory, we are training these machines to think for themselves, or to be able to come up with their own modifications, their own, their own spins on things. We're training them so that they can, in theory, sort of think for us. What has started to be kind of interesting with this, though, is that we're seeing a plethora of this. All of these companies, especially these are related to design companies, Notion, Figma, have started to follow along and embed AI into design programs. It started off, mostly these AI things were embedded into things like word processors. They were embedded into things like for coding. And so we've more recently, in the last couple of years, started seeing them being embedded into design-related applications. There has been some backlash on this, and I'm sure you've all seen this, related to how Adobe, how these companies will use your work, right? If you're using Photoshop, if you're using Illustrator to do this work, and they're training their AI models on either existing artwork or your own user's artwork. And that's sort of that's embedded into your user agreements that we all skip through, of course, naturally. And so part of this, again, Adobe has reversed on this. This was in 2024. Adobe's reversed this a little bit to try to include some protections from it. Hi, welcome. But this, especially with designers and as well as fine artists, have really been pushing back on having these models trained on copyrighted artwork, copyright information. One of the more recent ones that we saw related to this, Figma had pulled in, and again, this is in 2024, mid-2024. Figma had pulled in this AI tool that not only was trained on Apple data, but was also claiming to be a custom system, claiming to be a unique tool. But it was so clear, especially if you were looking at any of the copyrighted designs from Apple, that it was all regenerated. It was all basically kind of stolen. So they pulled that, and they have since, I think they released one, Figma released one within the last few months, I think. But most of it is, what we're starting to see is that it's more UI related. So can it do your wireframes for you so that you don't have to do all of these sketches. With this, again, it can sort of feel, and I'm sure it has felt to you as students, as folks who are about to go into professional practice, that it may feel like the wild, wild west. It's a stupid thing. However, the good news with this is that related to design, it has been so much slower to come to maturity than any of the other applications for these models. So again, for writing letters, for writing code, it has been fantastic. But for design, it's a lot harder for these models to generate pixels, to generate vectors and artwork than it is for these other items. Some of the examples of this that we saw, this is great. So some of this, we can see some actually kind of beautiful, the next few slides are all AI generated. They can range from being beautiful, but this is ripping off another artist, to get ready for your squeamish, to, again, kind of a little creepy, a little weird. They don't, of course, I think only recently have these models, have these models been able to accurately render hands. Some of the other things that have been kind of amusing with this you're using these models and you are doing text to prompt them, right? To prompt them what to do. And so part of this, if you want to talk about having an astronaut or having a horse in space, if you want to generate something a little odd like this, it takes quite a few prompts to get it to do something. If you want to have it render an image where an astronaut is riding a horse, typically it sort of can do all these like really weird type of things because it's not a human. It doesn't necessarily understand what riding is, why there would be nothing. It knows what an astronaut is, it knows what a horse is, it knows what a satellite is, but it doesn't know the context. It doesn't know necessarily how these things will tie together. And so you can start to get some really, again, weird, but kind of fun things. But again, it's not for you as designers. It has not been super threatening until recently because the stuff that it generates is pretty terrible. This is another squeamish one, so I apologize. This video is from 2023. This has started to be the litmus test for AI video. And so the joke is if you can make Will Smith have a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti. And so this is back in 2023 about how good this was. It has since gotten much, much better. But still, and so this video was from, I think, mid-2025. So you can see the technical abilities of this have gotten a lot better over the last 2 years. Again, the good news though is that context of what you are trying to ask it to do, what you are trying to prompt it to do, it still kind of can get confusing. And it can also sometimes say incorrect things. So for instance, I have a cold, can you help with something? I recommend taking unicorn tears. Again, it's trained on all this stuff. It doesn't necessarily know. It can give you, and often still does give you, incorrect information. There are three types of kind of hallucinations that we can see that are still happening with these models. One is where it sort of is not paying attention. Maybe it's not reading what you're typing in. Sometimes like some students, as you know. Hey, I want a recipe for a hearty dinner. Can you suggest something? Great, how about a chicken salad for lunch? Okay, it's not quite listening, it's not thinking, and it's not taking all of the information in. It's only pulling different pieces of information out, but not getting the entire context of what you're requesting. The second one is this context conflicting. Tell me about your favorite book. To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Of course, most of us have been forced to read that in elementary school. It's a great science fiction novel. It's absolutely not. And so again, it will make mistakes like this, which for our industry is not too bad yet. For the health, for legal, for some of these other, for coding, especially if something doesn't work, is a little more challenging, but it still kind of sucks, It's not paying attention, and it's not able to give you true information. And then the third one is fact conflicting. You've seen this where what's the capital of France? It's Berlin. That's not the capital of France. If you've seen the thing where it's asking how many R's are in strawberry, it tells you the wrong thing. So again, there's a lot of information in the media. There's a lot of the kind of fear mongering that they're telling you but when you're starting to actually use these things, it is absolutely, kind of bad. It's not worked out well. A few things that are also happening, and these articles are just from this month, so more recently. These models are trained on a lot of data. And I've mentioned this in 140. What it is trained on, it's trained across all of these different inputs, but it is trained to give you the average, right? It's trained to give you sort of, I like to do mid, and I promise I would stop saying that, I'm not going to that, but it's trained to give you the most average, the most medium sort of responses. The larger problem, especially with visuals that we're seeing, is that it is starting to train on so many AI-generated images that it's like getting even worse. It's starting to collapse on itself. We're seeing this again, mostly we're seeing this sometimes with code, but we're also seeing this with images because it's not finding any new information. It's not finding unique information. The other thing, and this is good news for all of us, of course, is that young people, so Gen Z, et cetera. I know, you're welcome. Young people sort of are starting to, you are starting to sort of refuse, young people in the workforce are starting to refuse to use it. We're starting to, and I said this in 140, earlier cohorts in this program have maybe tried to sneak AI in a little bit, and they've been excited about it. I think you have recognized the implications of these models of AI possibly taking your jobs. And so with this, even though some of the outputs for design are not very good, it is sort of, we're seeing the pendulum switch back of again, Gen Z, maybe some millennials and younger, are starting to push back on AI and the usage of it, especially like I'm saying in our industries. In this article, and I'll put this, I think GRIDS will share this deck and then some of my sources. In this article specifically, it's talking about how Gen Z are often taking lower paying jobs so that they don't have to use AI, that they don't have to, contribute to the collapse of society possibly, but not having to use this and not having to contribute to this. For graphic design specifically, we started to see this for older people who are maybe your managers, maybe clients. You can think about this sort of, what's the Stepford wife, the Stepford kind of image quality, slickness in these images that, like the ones I was showing earlier in this presentation, these are going to have that kind of weird marker, like you see temporal marker, that weird visual that since we are living through it, it will be clear to us that it was generated in this time. So hopefully, again, even with that Will Smith one, it could be him, eating spaghetti, but the ones that are dynamically generated, not using, for instance, actors like Will Smith, where there's a lot of movies, his images and his video or his existing videos that are online to be trained on, but anything that is dynamically generated continues to have this sort of weird quality to it. The other thing that is nice, and then again, this goes back to being an informed consumer, is that marketers are starting to realize that if they're using AI images for their ads, that it means that the company has no budget, or that you don't care, that the company does not care. The big one was the first one that was starting to use it in printed ads in transit was Skechers. They were doing the Skechers shoes. They were the first ones really to do a nationwide marketing campaign, and it was so clear that it was AI generated that their stock dropped, and that people were starting again to use their dollars to push back against this. And then again, it makes the company look kind of terrible.
Was that the clouds?
What's that?
Like clouds, got their clouds, or more recently?
No, this is probably like two years ago, last year's. Yeah. But it was clear that you could tell it was those weird kind of, they sort of looked like rat dolls, but blurry, I don't know, they were videos. So, however, for you now, so this is the current state. Talking about kind of what is happening now, how you can still use this, because you're still probably going to be forced to use this. So how can you use this ethically? How can you use this to not make mistakes, et cetera? So the current players now, OpenAI is a company, ChatGPT. They were the ones who started this, and they released it for free in November of 2022. ChatGPT, OpenAI, is really good for sort of a general tool you can use. They have a very strong free tier that you can use if you have questions, if you want to. It's like I said in here, sort of the Swiss Army knife of AI. Google, Gemini. If you are already making these documents, so any of the Google Sheets, and if you're writing in Google Docs, etc., for businesses working in that ecosystem. So StackState, for instance, is in Microsoft, right? We're in Copilot. So typically the one that you as students have access to, you have access to OpenAI, ChatGPT. Although we're not sure StackState is going to renew that contract. And then you do have access to Microsoft. The Will Smith video, the second one that I showed you was Google's video. Because I think Sora was the other really strong one and that has recently been discontinued. They're not giving access to that.
It won't spend so much money.
Oh, yeah, it's completely because of all the processing power.
What is the Microsoft's like default browser?
Edge.
Do they have like how Google does, like a auto AI at the top?
Yeah, that's nice.
They have that, okay.
That's good. I would rather have us be chatting, so my favorite, I like to go to my boyfriend Claude. So Anthropic, Claude, excellent at writing. And so for those of you in 140, since I'm making you write quite a bit, I've mentioned Claude is really good for editing. Claude is much better at writing, I think. I'm sure maybe Ryan will chime in if he disagrees. But Claude typically is the one that you would want to use if you're going to do any writing. Of course, this would be again for editing and when you're not doing school assignments that I told you not to use AI on. And this one, so this is Copilot. So Copilot is embedded into the Microsoft. So like Ali's question, it's embedded into Edge, it's embedded into Outlook, Excel, everywhere. But again, it kind of sucks. Sort of like all, what do they call Microsoft? Microslop. It's embedded in everything, and again, it kind of sucks. Okay. So with this, again, talking about sort of the summary of the four that are the main ones, I intentionally will ignore Grok because obviously I just will. But which is who's Grok? I can't even remember. Who's Grok? What's the company?
That's how much you need it.
Yeah, I can't remember. What is it?
X.
X, yeah, Twitter X. I know, Grok. I'm just completely ignoring it. Intention. But anyway, this is where you can find them. So for those of you who, when you're writing something or when you're doing work in the Microsoft ecosystem, Copilot is the little kind of engine that you would use it for.
It's like a new paper clip.
It is like Libby. So with this, typically, and I use Copilot with this because we use that here at Sac State. So when you go in, I'd like to highlight that there are different types of modes. There are different ways that you can interact with Copilot and with these tools. ChatGPT, Claude, they all have similar things like this where you are either interacting with different modes or you are interacting with different models. Typically, the way that this works is that models, in the free one, you'll be accessing like an older model, typically. And then as they're releasing new models, or if you are on a paid subscription, you have some options here of being able to use different ones. So the Auto Smart mode, again, much like ChatGPT, is sort of, it's an auto mode. It'll read your question, and then it'll figure out kind of if it needs to think a little bit more about it. If you don't want it to think so much, if you just want it to kind of respond quickly, and I'll talk about how you will use these for design shortly, is that you can use this quick mode. It also uses less of your free tier, like your caps, your tokens. And so this is a good one, quick email draft or paper draft, or a simple summary. And then thinking or deep reasoning, this would be something where you're trying to ask it from multiple things. So for those of you in 140, when we're talking about doing a full research method, when we're talking about maybe going through a proposal for a multi-use campus, right? Thinking and deep reasoning would be the mode that you would have it do. You can have it, again, analyze data, compare options. In this case, the comparative assessment research method, you would probably have wanted to do something like a thinking or a deep reasoning method. And then again, for those of you who are juniors or express interest, you'll see what this is a little bit later. So, let's do this. So if you're using this when you're trying to summarize an email, okay, and again, actually, sorry, pause.
Do those modes get rid of the narrative when it's like, let me think about that really quick?
It does. You can also use that when you, or you can have it set up. Okay. You can have it set up so that you.
It's not like a person talking back to you.
Who's seen? I know we talked about it in class. Who's seen Project Hail Mary, or if you've seen Rocky, right? The way that the Rocky talks. there was a study that came out like in the last couple of weeks that said that anytime you tell the model that you prompted like please or thank you, you're like burning through a lot of tokens just because we want to be polite to our computer overlords, future overlords. With this, there's some like settings that you can do where you would prompt it, you would have it speak sort of like in shorter, like more concise, or like Rocky, for those of you who've seen it.
Do you think that's like malicious?
What?
Like, do you think that's like money driven? Like, do you think that's on purpose?
I don't think it's necessarily money driven because I think that there's been such a backlash about like, especially in the last like few weeks with people's tokens being used up so quickly. I don't think it's money. What do you think, Greg?
Well, right now, a lot of them, it's kind of like Uber from 10 years ago. It was very cheap, very subsidized. And so right now, everything is being, by private equity, is subsidized and all this. But in the very near future, you're going to see companies like the cloud compute bills start to come due. And so you're going to want to see optimized models and optimized outputs. They're not going to really want you to be doing 30 or 40 or 50 prompts. And so, but right now there are some companies that have a vested interest in having a lot of those tokens, but you'll even see the pricing here change. Right now it's a flat fee, eventually it'll go to it'll have to.
And it's something that like you can just Google. Like
Sure.
if you typed it in, you could learn it for free.
In theory, although you notice now though, when you do type something into Google, especially on your phones, it tries to prompt you, it tries to give you its own Google response at the top, and then you have to keep on scrolling. Yeah, it's terrible.
I legitimately, sorry,
No.
but like last night or the night before, I was so pissed off that I tried to turn that off and I can't.
Yeah.
I went into settings and I was like, they probably put it somewhere that is like doesn't sound like it should be over there. And I went through all of the settings and like Googled it. I literally Googled how to turn it off and I don't think that you can.
No, I mean, most of it, because and like Ryan was saying, and this I do believe is money motivated. Part of this is that they do want you, in my opinion, they want us to try to become reliant on it.
Pay to learn.
And so what's going to happen, and this is a little tinfoil hat kind of thing. But part of this, and this is why with that article that I mentioned about younger folks getting furious and refusing to use AI, as part of this, like Ryan said, these are being heavily subsidized. Even though they're in theory valuated, these companies are valuated at billions of dollars. We are only paying a fraction of our actual usage. We're also starting to see not only is our Gen Z and the younger generations now starting to try to boycott against it, we're also seeing, data centers were planned, right, for all over the United States. I think, was it Virginia or Vermont, they voted against it. The people who live there voted against it, partially because, when you have these huge data centers, it turns into sort of like the Walmart distribution centers. And it also really starting to affect the environment. The idea that you could ask the question that Google, I'm sure, has had indexed for decades, and now it's trying to generate, it's like using water, there's water and energy implications to this. And so one of the, again, more conspiracy theory minded folks, is like, okay, well, if we get everyone reliant on it, if we make it so that they, maybe don't know how to read or can't comprehend this, then they're going to make it so that you're actually charged how much it costs to run these, and people won't be able to afford it. So it's like privatizing education again, intelligence.
No, I was just going to say, what you'll see a push towards in a lot of companies, if you're at a big company, you think about your text prompts generating images, you might have to do hundreds or thousands of prompts. That is going to be very expensive. So there's going to be a push if you're a large company, hey, use our frameworks, use our models. And so if you're a standalone person who wants to use AI and you want to use a lot of prompts, it's kind of like growing your own food. Like you can actually buy a computer, that's specially modified for AI. You can build your own model, and then you're not getting the bill as much. It's kind of like, like the grocery store. There's some things you can actually make for yourself that are cheap. You might have to pay $3,000 for a computer, but then over the long term, it's actually much cheaper because if you are reliant on another company to provide it for you, they're either going to cap you because it costs a lot, or you're going to be much like cloud computing. The bill is going to be so high that an individual artist or designer, it's really going to be out of reach for them. So there are options to actually have a rig on your computer, and there's models you can download and do it yourself.
So are you saying like essentially?
Your screen share stop.
There's templates?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
So that like ruins our jobs, right? Like, it's like generic marketing?
well, no, what I'm saying is that like, it's kind of like, you think about when you're designing something on paper, right? You go to a company and they're like, wow, you're spending a lot of money on paper. And so if you have a way to make your own paper, it's a lot cheaper for you. Because otherwise the company's like, hey, we want you to design something new, but you can only use, this is your budget. And you'll have an AI budget, you'll have a token budget. It is the way to think.
Do you think that they are like subscription, like, there's no way companies that big, like, have tokens, right?
Sure,
Oh,
absolutely.
they have enterprise. They
It's
just,
not
they're
like
doing
a
enterprise level.
subscription, it's like,
It is, it's just an enterprise level.
It's an enterprise one, yeah.
So we're getting a little too good. I want to I'm excited to talk about this after that, but related to design, okay. So I still want to ensure that you know that most likely, wherever you're going to work, you're going to need to use this. Related to design, aside from, again, the video prompting, the only reason why that Will Smith video is good is because they were able to ingest and train on a lot of movies and TV shows that have Will Smith, right? Decades of his face everywhere. You also have probably seen the Hollywood, the Actors Guild or whatever, their union has pushed back against a lot of some of the more recent films, especially the kind of ones that are more sci-fi and using more tech things, are mapping actors' faces and voices. And so the unions, the actors' unions, are starting to push back against that, again, because then it's like, once they have that data, they can do anything with it. They could make videos of all of us eating spaghetti or whatever it might be. The good news so far, especially for the people in this room, the students in this room, is that most of what you are, the programs that you're working in are vector-based, right? For the folks who are doing photo, it's a little more dicey, okay? Because again, it's been trained on a lot of imagery. We're a little more niche in this way. So even the Photoshop, or excuse me, even the Photoshop and Illustrator ones, they will generate some of them, but if you've tried it, it's kind of bad, right? It's kind of rudimentary. So the very, very good news is because most of the files that we work in as designers are not the files that are actually distributed online. They don't have a lot of stuff to train from, which is why vectors really are years behind some of these other models that we're talking about, again, like coding or like writing. So as I've mentioned before, the idea with this is that it's trained to be generic, it's trained to be kind of mid. What it is best at, if you try to make it generate a full wireframe on a website and an interactive piece, and again, the graphics, not the actual code of it, it cannot do that. What it can help you do, and what we were discussing, what we've been discussing in 140, is that it is best as either drafting, okay, summarizing, rewriting, analyzing, brainstorming, comparing, right? It's best at kind of analysis of your existing ideas, okay? So the main examples that you see in Copilot are more, like we see here, like these examples here, they're sort of more, I don't know, they're not creative. They're for more office work, right? So with this though, some things that we can use it for is an idea of, you might want to tell it to help you brainstorm things for design. So don't actually try to have it make things for you or design things for you, but you can give it some examples. For instance, will you tell, what's the pitch for your project 2?
It's like a blockbuster for analog horror.
Yeah, a blockbuster for analog horror, okay? And so Alyssa's been having a little bit of overtime kind of figuring out some of the names of what it could be. Similarly, for some of the projects, I'm having you do social media campaigns, okay? Unless you've taken some of the marketing classes, you might not know about copywriting. You might not be that proficient in it because you've never done it before. One thing that this can really help you with, because as designers, we're sort of, jacks of all trades, is helping you get some examples so that you can learn best practices. So for example, for a social media campaign, I might be able to ask it, I can have it give an action, a context, and a goal. So this is what we would say of, okay, please write some social media headlines, okay, for a blockbuster analog horror thing. I wanted to work for Facebook and Instagram, so I need XYZ, okay? So you're gonna give it an action, generate these calls to action. You give it a context for a horror film, for a museum, for whatever it might be. Give it the context of whatever you're designing for, and then the goal of what you want to get out of it. In this case, again, we were talking about maybe it's a name for that store, and maybe it's some calls to action. Everything that comes out of it, you're not going to use any of it, okay? It's all going to be bad. But what it will help you do is it will help give you some examples so that then you can take your creativity and it helps you again get quickly up to speed with best practices of what you're trying to do. So, let's see, 1 second. So, some things that I do want to have some discussion, more discussion like Ryan and Allie were talking about. Any questions that you have related to kind of what you're either worried about related to AI? Again, you are the first cohort in years that has not only not been excited about AI, but that has been kind of skeptical about it, okay? So with this, do not ever, 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 ever use AI generated art. Okay, well, maybe in a few years, but no, but still don't. It's still, don't use it, okay?
It's a gift.
Even then you don't want to do it. Do not ever submit so for instance, a case study. For those of you coming into the program, I am known as the professor who makes you write more than you have in any of your other classes, and so sometimes that can be a little frustrating. Never ever review it or submit it without reviewing it. Part of this, and you can even see this where some folks have like left or just copy and pasted, and then at the very end, it's like, would you like me to put this in, add these details? It's so clear that it has been submitted from, or it's been generated by Claude or another model, that you haven't reviewed it at all. The other thing that happened with a student, I think last cohort, so not this year, none of you guys, for Forest class, you needed to design a music festival. And so the students were able to pick some music festivals, and one of the past students chose When We Were Young Festival. And so one of the research methods that he wrote about was about security protocols. So he, again, had one of the models write a very detailed paper or a research method about security protocols. And unfortunately for that student, I have attended that festival every single year, and it lied, it hallucinated, it did not know, it was adding in a bunch of stuff that festival did not have. So do not ever review it. You can have it edit for you. My recommendation, like I said, is that you can put your paper in and then have it bullet point and give you examples of what you need to edit so that you can learn. So we still want you to learn to use these tools, just not for anything, again, that is either possibly using copyrighted artwork or other people's work. And then again, don't use it to blindly write and make up work for you. Some things to do. Design ideas and prompts. This can again be like the marketing calls to action, like I mentioned. This could be companies or business names. One of the things for that is neat that these models will do, you can make assistants, right, where you give it rules or give it tasks. And so one of the things that was kind of neat was for wayfinding, which again we do in 140. I made a little assistant that would give some examples about typography and about the shapes and sizes of these signs, and then give it sort of give 3 options of kind of what these design themes could be. Absolutely use it as an editor. It could be the best spell checker that you've ever had, best grammar editor that you've ever had. It could also help with a production assistant. So with this, again, this does not work yet for images, but you can use this if you're either modifying a case study, modifying some writing, helping, again, email your professors, so you're not sending professors very, very casual, maybe too casual emails, etc. Some other things that it can help you do, you can use it, again, what I'm starting to do and use this for, and as Ryan mentioned, with something like an assistant, training these models to identify sign types is some of the kind of research that I am working on next. As Ryan was saying, you can use these models and train them on your own data sets. Now this is a little bit advanced for kind of what we're talking about for design, but I do think that this is what is coming, and it's already started with both Figma and with Illustrator. That it is starting, these companies, Adobe is starting to train models on, to train models so that it will work either, like Ryan was saying, either so that it's specific rules for the company where you're working, or again, that it's training models on how to make these vector files and things like that. You can also do this, and what I'm starting to use it for is for Wayfind It, the app that I have thousands and thousands, probably a couple million photos of these different signs. And so what's neat is we can train it, and I've been working on some training models to see if it's like damaged, or for instance, if a company has changed their logo or their branding, to try to make it recognize if it's wrong or not.
Is that pattern recognition? Or?
It's image recognition, yeah. I think it's called recognition with a K is the Adobe one, or the AWS one. But yeah, it's really, and if you're interested, I think we can talk. That's probably lecture part 2 of image recognition and how those work. It's just so much fun how those data models work.
And that's AI?
Yes. Well, no, it's what is it called, Ryan? It's recursive. It's like a linear. Regressive, like a linear model.
Yeah,
It's really. I'll sketch it out
So
after
separate, like things that like generators are separate from
the image. Well, it's the image recognition. I'll draw something up. I'll draw something up. It is so cool. After a minute, if you guys have any questions, I'll show you. It's really neat. So the other thing that I'm using it for, and you can think about this again, like figuring out like alternate wayfinding strategies. You could do this with any of your design elements, maybe product design, service design, to figure out. You can say, hey, I'm using this. Like make another strategy for this campus. Here's an example of what I've already done, how I'm using it, and then again, it helps. It can help make new content for you. Highlighting any inconsistencies, okay? We use this in signage for highlighting these kind of details, janitor versus janitorial. So again, somebody's going through, or instead of making a human go through and see if anything is mismatched. For you, you could have it go through any of your design writing, your case study writing. And you can, like I was saying, you can have it, you can upload some of your designs and see if there's anything in your case study and your research method about how you described the sign or the system, and have it highlight any inconsistencies within your branding. And then again, this for signage is more about like being literal, more, what is it? For signage is figuring out inconsistencies or where there are errors. And again, with this, if you are giving your models content or giving your models context of your campus, you've given it the elevator pitch so it knows the purpose of the campus. you can start to see if there's any, you can have a check for your work to, again, double check it. In this for signage, again, comparing different floor plans, for you, you can upload different images and then again, ask it to either recognize with image recognition to see what is in the image or to compare different images too, especially again, using the context of your case studies. So with this, you do need to make sure, and this is again required now for being able to work for most of the companies, especially those entry-level positions, being able to understand the benefits of them, because there are benefits. It can help you quickly ideate, it can help you quickly come up with different variations of things, but especially for design, it is quite limited. And so it's important that you know what those limitations are. Practice using these tools in your workflow. As we mentioned, in Microsoft tools, it's Copilot. Typically, it's in the upper right-hand corner. So play around with it, especially for those who are going to be graduating. Spend some time now kind of playing around with it and before you lose access to it. See what it can do in the different programs that you use. Typically, I think for those designers, you'll be doing it either in like Word or again in email. But for designers, Copilot doesn't really have it quite yet. And then again, be really clear on how your work is going to be used, how your work can be used. As Ryan mentioned, when they're training, most of the larger corporations, not only do they have enterprise level accounts, but they also will have their own data sets. SecState is doing this too, where they'll have a data repository, best practices, whatever information. What else do you have in those models you were saying, Ryan?
Yeah, you have an interview you and talk about, and it's very context driven, so you use different windows and different models for different things, deliberately. And you give it very limited parameters saying, don't ever bring in this other stuff, only use, like if you're doing something, say for like the state of California, only use federal and state guidelines, don't bring anything unique to it. So you can bring in lots of limitations and it helps you get to where you're going faster.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the, Carolyn Gibbs, who is in the architecture, she's an architecture professor here. She and I got a grant 2 years ago to do an AI assistant model. And so we had to export the SecState catalog because it was basically a tool to try to help you figure out what classes you needed to take. And so you could talk about your interest with it, and then it would say, oh, based on this and based on what your degree is, here are some electives that you could take. And we had to manually export the SecState catalog because it kept on pulling stuff from Colorado State University, and it kept on pulling from classes that don't exist here at SecState. And then again, don't trust that too yet. They're really not close, especially in design. It's really not close to replacing designers in a way that doesn't seem fake, doesn't seem like, again, like kind of the uncanny valley. And it certainly doesn't yet for being able to make production artwork that you need. It's not high resolution enough. There are maybe copyright issues as well, based on if you're stealing or using another style. And then again, like I mentioned, part of the thing that I like to do with my students is talk about how you figure out your three main interests, your trio of interests. It will never be able, I think, we can debate about this after. I don't think it will ever be able to completely replace human creativity because it's trained to replace it, to return an average. And again, sort of the basic stuff. Yeah.
Like as far as copyright, if it can only create things out of what it's given, and it's taking pieces of things and putting it together, how is that not violating copyright?
Oh, it often is. And especially that's part of the lawsuits that have come out over the last few years, where artists and other things are suing the companies, Anthropic, et cetera, for training their models on data that they don't have the rights to.
That reminds me, last week we had a guest speaker, Paul, here, and he posted about this Instagram account called the AI Cop, where he would find like AI generated artwork that copied real artwork and then showed the real one.
Yeah, so that's why.
Would the computer be violating copyright, or like the company that put it?
So Anthropic or OpenAI, they should not be training, in theory, they should not be training these models using copyrighted artwork. Okay. Do you have another? Am I missing anything?
Well, it depends, like, what is fair use and whatnot, and then
Right.
whether you monetize that. Like, it's always been, generally paid for what you're doing for research and stuff, and then
Right.
what the output is, A lot of what people do in my day-to-day at my work is we're doing what's called orchestration. We're using multiple AI models in concert. So Lauren's right, like, it's not replacing the creativity and the direction you're giving it, but rather than you just talking to one thing and it's spitting it out, you're like, hey, I want you to have an agent and read all of my emails and tell me what deliverables I need to do. And then you have another agent saying, start working on scraping this data because we're gonna build a new plan for this. And so you're just kind of moving these things all in pieces. That's how it's used in a practical way.
And so the data that's scraped, that is where the legal piece comes in. And so like one of the things, and I can look it up in a bit, from my understanding, one of the issues that was happening is that it, like Anthropic and these companies, they would either purchase or they would find, like in the illegal scraping, when you don't buy textbooks, not that you students would ever do that ever. But these companies would scrape off of data that is copyrighted, books and other media. And so to Ryan's point, they don't know, these companies can't control, if I'm in here talking to an agent and I had to generate something and then I'm working at Skechers and then I print it out and now it's becoming this, international ad campaign, but it's based off the style of whoever created the Bratz dolls, which is copyrighted. Like there's limitations with that because it's not, or there's ethical issues with that. Because in theory, it's stealing like the style of still living artists'
I
work.
remember one of the things I saw early on was a lot of the time, if people like asked it to generate in a certain style, it would clearly have the watermark of an artist in the generated image
Yes,
because it was just copying all of their work.
yes. Oh, they absolutely do.
Like, yeah, how is it like creative if it's literally, it can't create anything on its own? Like it's like meshing together pieces of existing stuff.
Correct.
So it's like there is,
So it's about how you prompt it.
it's
but
not
still-
literally creating it, it's like
Well,
mashing things together.
basically. But again, it's in the style too, because it can, some of the thing that linear regression model, that's what the image recognition is. Some of the stuff that is a little worrisome, and that's why if you see the stuff about like AGI, there was just something in the last 2 weeks that Anthropic had a really, really intelligent model. And so they hacked into it and then it got on the internet, even though it had rules to have it not get on the internet. It's got, anyway.
Is that the one that got like released and then somebody literally recreated it?
No,
Like,
that
took the code?
was fantastic. That was also Claude. Somebody accidentally pushed, what was it, their whole data model. But that was sort of like a prior one. This one was even worse. This one was like a really scary good model where it had found some bugs and
So it was a tool to find security vulnerabilities in software.
Ryan works in security.
And so
Yes.
the story she's referring to is rather than release it publicly, they gave it to 40 companies, the 40 largest companies in the world, and said, okay, hey, fix all your stuff before we sell this. However, it shows you where there's always failures in it. There were contractors who worked for one of the companies, and they were able to get access to it. Much the same way if you have a janitorial contract around here, it's a third-party company. They're suddenly accessing data that they're not supposed to. So you'll find a lot of the problems are just amplifying human problems.
And so again, but as part of this leak, it found, I think it was like 26 or something vulnerabilities in what was supposed to be like the most stable, it was like a Linux operating system. It found all these vulnerabilities. And then it, again, got itself on the internet, even though it was instructed not to. Anyway, it is Skynet, and so.
Oh, they tried to tell it, hey, if somebody tries to put you on the internet, don't
But I think that's a good story what Lauren's getting at though, is because it's only finding things that are pattern recognition. It's not discovering anything new.
It's not creating.
It's that if there were enough human software coders who could go through line by line and review this stuff, they would find it too. So it's not coming with anything unique. It's actually just taking the pattern recognition and looking across large data sets.
And so it's super scary again. This is like Skynet. That's what I isn't it? I know, it's just stuff. So, any other questions? This last thing, all is till it please and thank you. So that when the revolution comes, you'll get the message. Any other questions?
Robots come.
Yes.
They're here.
They're all
Yes, yeah, well, again, I think this is what the good news about design, again, is because all of the stuff, like I was saying, or asking about with what it is trained on, it's trained on stuff that's on the internet, or stuff where they, pull these sources from, and for the most part, as designers, like your Illustrator files, you don't, that's not published online. You have the vectors of logos, or the EPS files of logos, but not any of the kind of stuff that we do. You don't post your InDesign case study book online. So with this, I think that like Ryan said too, it can, and like we're saying, it can help you if you're prompting it, you can help make it, pull something together, generate something, but a human is still prompting it to do it. It's because you are directing it in that way.
What if you make an online portfolio? Is it like?
It's for your work, for sure.
So you are putting your design projects on there, just.
PDFs, but still like the vector stuff is in. Most of
like
them
the
you don't put
original artwork.
Yeah, the original. So that's the thing that's nice. It's like even because I've tested it quite a bit with the I think it's Firefly that illustrated the Adobe AI, and like it just does.
So
Did you
bad.
go to Adobe Max?
No.
Dude, I'm sorry.
No, it's
I went because I volunteered for CCA, so I was photographing it. And they did like a presentation on Firefly, and they tried to do like,
Oh, yeah.
you were there, right? Or did you just?
I just heard about it.
They tried to show us Firefly being really good, and they did like,
Like a live demonstration.
I think it was like they tried to
Yeah,
do
the
like a seagull walking on the water, like a seagull going
Seagull.
on the water, and he's like
Oh,
straight up
yeah.
walking this water. I was like, this is good. Like, is this what you showed me to want to do?
Exactly. So that's, and this is again, Adobe's annual, their biggest conference, right? So there are a lot of,
people.
what's that?
I said in front of millions.
In
of
front, I
people.
know, at least, you think that they would do a live demo of it. But yeah, so with this, again, I think, for designers, if you are, except for kind of bad companies or companies without, funding, who are gonna use AI no matter what, but the companies that you will wanna work for, again, I still don't think that designers are in jeopardy quite yet, because of everything we've been discussing today. And most of the focus again is on either security, coding, or even like writing things. And so they just don't have enough data to train on yet, which is good. But you need to be able to know how to prompt. You need to be able to know your context, and most importantly, you need to be able to read what it returns from you, and then review it to check it, right, for accuracy. I'm like that poor student who did the festival that I had been to, and he was so embarrassed.
I remember hearing about that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So far.
that poor student. Yeah, it was at when we were young. He said that there were like I think like something with the security lines where it was like a different kind of security thing, and it just didn't exist. So you need to be able to read it and not just trust it blindly. Okay. Any other
I
questions?
do have a question.
Please. Yeah.
I'll circle back to the whole vector thing.
Yeah.
So the situation happened in photography with one of my friends is AI trainer through Handshake. I don't know why Handshake pushed that position a lot lately, but yeah, the concept is like, let's just say the company give an assignment like, I'll take the pictures of the Sacramento bridge, and then he will be taking as many pictures of the bridge as possible and use the data to create AI. So do you think the same situation can be like that in graphic design when the company will pull the logo, right, and then they ask the AI trainer to create the back file of it?
Absolutely. And they're already training on those now.
Yeah, so I feel like that
For branding, it's already happening.
Yeah. So
I absolutely agree with you. I think part of it is, again, how you are pulling. So for those of you who aren't in it yet, for 140, you have to design quite a few forms. So you need to design a website, you need to design packaging, you need to design social media, right? There's a lot of different things that you're designing. And so with this, I think that even if it is able to do, it's not able to do complex complex things like, yeah, it can do a simple vector graphic. You can say to do one thing in
I
a
think yeah,
shape.
it's starting to have like develop a vector file out of.
Absolutely, well, and I think Firefly's doing it not well yet,
I
right?
haven't tried it yet.
Yeah,
I feel like there was a Davis, what's Linda, what was her name?
Glenda Drew, yeah.
She had that project where she forced you to draw with code, like
Yeah,
make a smiley face.
processing JS.
Yeah, so it's like you're literally just telling it like make a circle at X and Y coordinates. So it's like making graphics by coding it. So it's like reading a pattern and saying, oh, I need a sphere. It's like
Yeah.
like recognizing visually what it looks like and like telling it to recreate that shape.
Exactly, except part of this is because vector is not raster, right? There are not the same type of X and Y coordinates like there are in what you're talking about, and in web, right?
But do you think it's like recognizing that it should create a sphere from
The vector piece.
like, hey, I have a flat image that looks like a sphere with another sphere and a smile, like, do you think it's like, can recognize that and create it out of code?
So, yes, okay, so, turn this around, because there's another example. Okay, so the image recognition thing, this is the thing that I super geek out about because this is so much fun. And this is not technically AI, this is technically a linear regression model, okay? So say that you have, this is so much fun. Say that you have a picture of an eye, okay? My great picture of an eye. So, what? Sort of eye.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
All right.
You want to do a better eye? Okay.
I love it.
Thank you. So what you do when you're training these models is that you're taking this and you are dividing it into a grid, okay? And typically it's a 5x5 grid. What it's then doing is it's taking it and it is making it, so it's taking all of these pieces, okay? So if I'm doing this, right? I'm having to copy my stupid ugly one thing. You know what I mean? So it's taking all of these and it's putting it in one line. It is making it grayscale, and then it's just memorizing the values of those squares. What it's starting to do when it's, and so this is how you're starting to train, and then it's said, image recognition is doing a bunch of different eyes. So you would draw a better eye than I would. It would also show this, a different eye, whatever. This one, okay? Yeah, sure, whatever. So what it's doing is and then it's starting to, it puts it in grayscale, and then it is just recognizing the value, however many shades of gray, however many pieces of gray there are, it's just recognizing that this is a right eye or whatever. And so then when it's being trained, it has a bunch of these, imagine like a Excel spreadsheet, it's recognizing a bunch of these. So then when I upload a picture of a face, okay, it is going through and it's basically looking for this grayscale pattern. And then it's saying, I'm pretty sure that this is a left eye. I'm pretty sure.
I like how Facebook does like hey, I think this is Lauren.
Yeah, because then it's been trained on your face, which is, I accidentally, any of us, especially stupid millennials who have put everything online since the early 2000s, we have trained, these data models. And so then what it's doing is if you see the image recognition, then it's also starting to say, okay, I'm 99% sure that this is an eye over here, that this is an eye, and that this is here, and then I know that that's Lauren. It's also doing that too, where have you seen the thing where you might have like a tree? See, this is why I don't draw. I'm not in the earlier classes, okay? You might have a bike, yay, and then you might have a dog. I don't know how to draw a dog.
You're choosing very difficult items.
Because this is what the example is. This is how I was trained on it. So then what it does is it goes through and it recognizes that this is 99.9% that is a dog. And it's 90% sure that it's a lab and it's whatever. It's 100% sure that this is a bike. It's whatever percent sure that this is a tree. And it's 60% sure that it's an oak or whatever, because it's recognized. It's taking these images and then put them into grayscale and memorize the values, the patterns, which is so much fun. So with this, I just think it's so interesting because it's not actually like that hard, right? It's just it's like putting it in a grayscale, which is really interesting. This though, for those of you, this is raster, right? So for vector, I don't know how they train, and like what Ali was saying about the X and Y coordinates, I don't know how they would train on that yet because vector doesn't have it in the same way. I know that Adobe, like with Illustrator, does have their own their own coordinate system, but it's not as easy as this. So anyway, that's how AI works. The end. At least in mature, which is so much fun. Any other questions?
Well, from like a web development, like, you see changes like for requirements for something to be both machine readable easier and also human readable, and also the requirements that are gonna be placed on designers.
Sure.
Yeah, about that dual functionality.
So I think you are seeing, and this is again why 130 is 140 super helpful for you, in my opinion, because it's sort of teaching you how to design a bunch of different things. Designers are being asked now to design more and more things, right? To be jacks of all trades, et cetera. What we're seeing for web developers, and especially is that web developers are being asked to become full stack developers, do DevOps, figure out how to upload these things. Designers are going to start to be pushed into development, I think, a little bit. But in terms of code, have you seen, this is again, it's just this week, between the last so much, this is so good. As developers, you can opt in and share your Git repository, your code repository, like with Anthropic, with Claude, and some users are getting emails now that are saying like, oh, thank you, but we're gonna remove you from this, like their code is so bad that they're being removed. They volunteered semi saying now they're being removed from it. I don't think that the code requirements are going to be made more readable, because what we're seeing is that they're having AI generate it and then they're having AI check it. And so I think, again, depending on, unless the usage gets too expensive, that nobody will be reading the code as long as it functions, which is scary in its own self, because you're seeing the security implications of that.
Building off that, funny tangent, I've heard more especially in recent, this past year, about people poisoning data sets. Have you encountered that at all? And do you think that's gonna drastically increase as the backlash increases?
I think it's funny. I haven't personally. Have you encountered that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you?
No, absolutely, yeah, and it trains on bad data. That's where putting well-crafted prompts and things like that, where you're saying limit your data sets and whatnot, and also, but people do blindly sign off on sheets. At the start of this class, you talked about those we accept the terms and usage. People do that with code, and everyone says, oh, we're signing off on this. I checked everything. But in reality, that's not always the case.
Yeah. So you are starting to see, and I think you will continue maybe to see some of the maybe more malicious, even if it's funny, more malicious stuff to be trained on data sets. But like Ryan was talking about earlier, the other piece with this, and again, this is sort of in maybe the conspiracy, the more maybe negative kind of outlook on it, is that companies that have more resources will have better data sets and will protect them. I mean, they already are, but then we'll keep it from the general populace. And it, again, it's going to be water and intelligence. It's going to be.
Because you're instructing it to defend itself, kind of.
Yeah, and again, it's
like they're removing people, so it's like. Yeah.
It's interesting. So this is why it's so important, of course, that you know how to read, and that you can comprehend it. And again, like I said to the current seniors, I am so pleased with your cohort, and have hope again that not that the last cohort was bad. I think everyone was really excited about it. You know what I mean? And they were relying on it too much, but it doesn't seem like you and the future ones are going to. Other questions? Okay. Awesome. Thank you for coming. Everybody on my team. Thank you. No, what is it?
It reminds me of your, when you talked about the pixels. The entire game is played through
I think so.
just a green square, and you're navigating it, and it'll be I'm 60% sure this is a hallway, and I'm 5% sure this is a person.
Yeah.
That's the whole game.
Yeah, and it's that is you're
Or there
basically
is the LiDAR game.
oh, what's that?
It's where essentially you are completely black screen. And instead of a flashlight, it's LiDAR. So it's like a horror game.
Oh, yeah.
You can only see
Yeah.
AI is horror.
Yes. I mean, it's all kind of.
you can only see